Meet identical twins Sierra and Sienna. Sierra is 14 inches taller than her twin sister.
Sometimes when we go out in public, people would think she's my mom and not my twin. When we go to bars, people think I'm 8, even though I'm 23.
First off, I didn't even realize that I was having twins until about 6 weeks before they were born. They said, well, you're having twins, but you need to quickly get over that because we need to talk about baby B. I knew that she had dandy walker in utero, so they could see that she was missing a portion of her brain, and then they could see that she was a lot smaller as well. Sienna stayed in the NICU for 108 days, and then she went into the hospital a lot over the next several years of her life. It was a long fight to find out what kind of dwarfism she had, or that she had dwarfism in general. She did have a hole in her heart, and they thought perhaps that was why she was so small. And then they gave her a feeding tube in her stomach because they thought maybe she wasn't eating enough. And so it wasn't until she was about 6, right? I think
6 or 7, yeah.
That we discovered that she had dwarfism.
It was more or less like a relief, because now that we know what it is, we know what we need to do in order to better her life.
Sienna is a Spitfire.
Yeah, I always say I'm like a size of a Chihuahua, but a personality like a Rottweiler.
Put 2 tablespoons of sugar in there. With Sienna being my twin and having dandy walker and primordial dwarfism, I've definitely been put in a more big sister role rather than a twin role. I don't think differences became as a parent until we got older and I started driving and things like that. That's when it became a bit more apparent to us.
She's very more responsible one in the group. Like if we're just hanging out with friends, she's kind of like the mom of the group almost, and like, okay guys, like let's just have a schedule, like here where we're gonna be, let's all meet here. That's kind of how she is.
Yeah, and then just look down, look over here.
Sierra has taken on a sort of motherly role sometimes, but I think it has made Sierra grow up faster and more mature.
It was probably a lot more difficult for Sierra to have to take on that role, but I think at the same time too, if she hadn't have been there, I don't believe that Sienna would have progressed to the degree that she has, because she always wanted to be more like her sister, and she always worked harder to get to that level.
Like I think she has helped me with my emotions more, like help me control it, like okay, you're feeling this way, so here's what we're going to do to make it better. And so when I was like younger, I would just explode with my emotions. I didn't know how to control it. That's why she said I'm a fire, you know. I just get out some reason why. But as I'm getting older, I'm learning to, okay, I gotta like calm down, learn to control my anger. That way I'm not just gonna fight everybody. And so for her support, I would just be, I don't even know, to be honest. When we go to bars, people think I'm 8, even though I'm 23. And it's just really funny.
Okay, where's
It's very interesting. A lot of times I'll go out and it looks bad. It looks like I'm feeding drinks to an 8-year-old. It's not, it just does not look good. I'm aware that it doesn't look good, but we're gonna accept that.
You know what, it's not all as bad as being short. As I'm getting older, I'm like, good, my clothes are cheaper, my shoes are cheaper when you can find them.
Sienna would always be left out of a lot of things because she was so tiny compared to the other kindergartners, for instance. She would get picked on a bit too. People that don't know what we're dealing with, they don't know what it is. They would blame us for starving one child and not starving, her twin sister.
For me, the emotional side of things was a little challenging because Sienna having an identical twin who is, average height, she would see what she was missing. So she could see what her life would have been like if she weren't so small and, missing parts of her brain and whatnot. That was really difficult sometimes because she would say, why is Sierra getting to live the life I want to live?
It's affected our relationship in the sense that we have to be very communicative and we have to be really we can't be jealous of anything because we do have very different lives.
And we have different experiences too.
Yeah, very
so,
different experiences.
We're on a different road paths, literally up and gotten older. Well, hey guys, this is my workplace. We do all sorts of beads here, and we do all sorts of jewelry. Sometimes we have teeth. One eye can go wrong with teeth. We're working on beads. Hey, that rhymes. I'm a dork. So, a lot of time with my primordial dwarfism, a lot of them do have some form of scoliosis. I have 2 curves, so I have an extra. With that, I have a lot of back pain every single day. But as I'm getting older, I learned to work with it. And so you learn your limits.
Identical twins don't always look identical, case in point. And so the way that it happens is it's called monozygotic rather than identical. So that means one egg, and then the egg splits, and then because Sienna's diagnoses are mutations, her genes mutated after the egg split, and that's how they're so different, even though they're quote-unquote identical twins.
It's neat to, from a dad's standpoint, to see that they are twins and that they have such a tight relationship, and yet they are still really so different, not just because of their height.